Perfect. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone here and everybody online. Welcome. I hope everyone online can see me and hear me. If there is an issue, just unmute and tell me because I won't be able to look at the chat. So today's topic is cultivating simple daily practices for better well-being. But before I start, and I hope everyone is good, because I don't need to do that. There's a few new people, so hopefully most people know me, but I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Aziza Marshi, and I am a pharmacist at Cape City Field Pharmacy and Wellness, processing and Dufferin. And I like to call myself a holistic pharmacist because I feel like I practice pharmacy a little differently, not just because of my training as a holistic nutritionist and wellness coach, but also I think my own experience dealing with autoimmune conditions in a very integrated process. That really taught me a lot about how many different modalities are out there and so much of lifestyle and food and thoughts and emotions and stress, all have such a big impact on my healing. And so that has kind of been, I guess, is my passion really behind this, because I really feel that a lot of this is not talked about often, especially within the medical field. And so this is something I guess it's my mission now to really empower people to really understand that there's a lot more we can do, in terms of healing ourselves and really preventing it. And so hence the topic today. Now, the reason why I chose this topic is last month, and some of you were here, we talked about supplements. Right, it was a great discussion we had. We talked about different kinds of supplements, how to choose them. And but I realized that supplements can be costly, and not everybody has the means or the ability to spend that kind of money. And I thought, well, why don't we talk about things which are available to us, which are free, right, and which are so easy. And oftentimes, because they're so simple, we don't realize how to come up with it, right? So I thought, well, let's make that the next topic. So at the time when I put that topic up there, I didn't realize how many of these things I'll come up with, and there were so many. So I thought, okay, let's limit to 10 because we want to stay within time. So I've got 10 simple habits that you can implement in your daily life that can have a huge impact, no matter how simple they seem, but they are quite common. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So starting with, it was working then and I didn't want it to move, right? Okay. We have to just move here. So, number one, chew your food. Very simple, right? You would think, well, we all chew our food, but do we really chew our food? So, if you guys can tell me, do you guys feel you chew your food well? Yeah, and I didn't either actually before I learned this. But the reason why chewing your food is really important is because our mouth, our digestive system is one long tube. It starts in the mouth and it goes right all the way to the back end. Right? So really, if you think about it, if we don't do things properly at the beginning, it's gonna have an impact on that. It's like, if you're working in a team and one team member that's not doing the work, that's slacking off, everybody else is gonna have to pick up the slack. And if they have to work harder, then they're more likely to get tired. And that's exactly what happens when we're not oh, it's not going on because it's recording me. Hang on one second, let me fix this. Let's do that. Okay, let's try again. All right, so when we are, when we don't chew our food well, what happens is the rest of the organs have to work on it, right? And so what that means is they get tired more. So there's two functions that chewing has. Number one, it's a mechanical digestion. It's the only time in our digestive system that it actually mechanically breaking down food. And that's really important, especially for things like, proteins, which are hard to digest. If you have a piece of like chicken or meat, if you're not breaking down into really like small particles, when it goes to the stomach has to work harder because the proteins need digestive enzymes and acid in order to really break down into smaller pieces, which can then be absorbed. right? You cannot absorb anything into the bloodstream unless it's broken down to the smallest particle. And that's the thing with digestion, right? You can eat the best food in the world, but if your digestion is not good, it doesn't matter, it's not going to get absorbed. And in fact, if it gets absorbed without fully digesting, it causes even more problems. That's another topic for the day. But the point is, when you don't chew your food well, when you chew your food well, it allows the proteins have more surface area, which then allows all these enzymes, which are chemicals that are produced by the stomach, to come in and start digesting. It just gives us a lot more space to work on. It's a lot more easier, right? That's number one in terms of chewing. Number two, what chewing does is actually increases the saliva production. And digestion actually begins in the mouth because the saliva contains enzymes, which are chemicals that start the digestive process. So if you're not chewing well, you're not getting enough of those chemicals, which means your digestion isn't really starting when it should have started again. So you're starting off at the beginning. You start off at the beginning, what happens is the rest of the body kind of has to work harder. The pancreas produce more enzymes, the stomach has to work harder to digest, and that puts a load on the system. Also, when you start chewing your food, the brain also sends a signal to the stomach saying, hey, it's coming, because it's all connected. In fact, before chewing, you should actually be smelling it, right? Because it really starts in the brain. So then if you actually, I've done a course of mindful eating. And I had people actually take a raise and I go mindful eating exercise. I'm not saying that I've done that. But just smelling that raisin, it would start stimulating production of the saliva. You could feel it, right? So that's what really that's the first step. And the second step, again, the chewing will actually will tell the brain that, to tell the rest of the digestive system that food's coming, so let's get started. So it just optimizes the whole system. And the thing with digestion is one of the most common complaints we get in, right? So many of our clients come in with digestive problems, either it's heartburn, bloating, constipation, all that can have an impact when you start chewing the food well. Now, I know that some of you ask me, how many times should I chew my food? My average is between 25 and 30. It all depends on, the kind of food, but for an average, 25 to 30 times. What's going to happen at the beginning is when you start chewing your food, because there's lots of at the back of the road, I usually do chewing 10 times per day. So right away, it's just automatically programmed to relax. And you're going to want to swallow that thing, right? So you have to consciously make an effort and be trained. It doesn't take long. Like I said, when I first started about this, I was chewing my food, and my teacher told me, just be patient. Do it a few times, your muscles will get used to it. Now I find that I can't do fast, because if I do, it's because I don't like swallowing big long, right? Because my muscles don't relax until I chew my food, right? So it's just a matter of practice, and your body gets used to it. So very simple process, very simple thing that most people have forgotten. I mean, I have to remind my kid that again, my son especially still does not choose that big guy that you saw. I think this is just, but I told him that I talked about it. But so this is something that I think we have to constantly remind ourselves that this is really a powerful practice. Simple, no cost to us, but can have a big impact. Okay. So the next practice is choosing one new fruit or vegetable weekly. First, I'm going to day here, so that's too much. Because most of the people are happy, right? We like a few things, like apple, pears, or whatever. And that's all we eat, right? But here's the thing, whether even eating seasonally, our ancestors used to eat seasonally, right? Because they didn't have access to what we have access to. Even that meant there were different foods at different times of the year. And here's the thing, right? Different plants contain different phytonutrients. And these are chemicals which are part of the plant's immune system, right? And there's tons of them, and many more being discovered all the time. And these phytonutrients actually help us when we consume them. There's a lot of them, you've heard about blueberry, right? The phytonutrients are in there. Again, that's just one. There's so many different types. So the more you have, the better it is for you, right? The second thing is diversity. Nature likes diversity, right? Diversity of plant foods leads to diversity in our gut microbiome. Because you might have heard me talk about the gut microbiome before, but it's really our bacteria that grow in us, right? Now we have more bacteria in us and on us than actually human cells. You probably heard more from me as well. So we have a lot of bacteria, and the more diverse they are, the healthier they are, right? So it's not like you don't want there to be, you want there to be ecosystem, like different types, just like our planet is an ecosystem. The microbiome colonies are an ecosystem. That more diverse they are, the better, the healthier they are. Which means if they're healthier, they will help us with digestion, they help us with absorption of nutrients, they actually decrease the inflammation, not just the gut, but the rest of the body, like the research on, there we go again, the research on the gut microbiome is like tremendous. There's so much research happening on that. And it helps maintain the lining of the gut, right? The gut microbiomes are very important. You may have heard about the leaky gut or the permeability. We need so many things. Well, if you have a healthy microbiome, it will actually maintain that permeability. It looks like Siri's on. Siri's on. Right? I could turn it off. Yeah, it does it and then suddenly it stops. So I don't know. First time I've seen it do it. Okay, so next one. Magic, I don't know. Okay, breathing, right? Now long breathing, you know, you're breathing, I'm breathing, that's not your life. But there's a difference in the way we breathe, right? And I want you to experiment. Okay, so if everybody can, I don't know, like putting our hands on our belly, but one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly, that's fine. And then take a breath, notice which part actually goes up. And what's the conclusion? Test the belly. Yeah. So most of us are actually testing this. Very shallow, right? Belly breathing is the one, it's called a diaphragmatic breathing, which is actually how it's supposed to be, right? So when you breathe, you actually can try again and see if you can actually, your belly should go up as you breathe in. And it should drop as you breathe out. Were you able to do that? So that's like a deep belly breath, right? And the reason why that breathing is important is because it actually calms the nervous system down. And it's important because so many of us actually live an activated nervous system today, right? It's just the way we live our lives. Like, you know, there's information everywhere, like, you know, we're so busy. Our nervous system is constantly activated. So being able to do this, even if you're not doing it all the time, just taking moments throughout the day, stopping yourself, and for that 5 moments, you know, let me just take some few deep belly breaths, right? This, you will notice, it actually calms your nervous system down. And when your nervous system is calm, you're in that rest and digest mode. And that's when healing is happening. You know, we truly believe that our bodies have the healing potential. We don't give it that space to allow itself to heal. So when you do this practice, it's very simple. And the more you do it, the more it will become normal for you to do that, right? The more, but in the beginning, just take maybe, you know, set a timer on your phone, and maybe at a certain time, it goes off, and then it's gonna take 5 minutes, done, right? For that moment, you actually, if you were in a stress mode, you calm yourself down. If you find yourself in a stress situation, like you feel like you agitated, you know, things that keep belly breathing is very effective at calming down our system and taking us from that stress out fight or flight to the calm, rest, and digest. So very effective. And the other thing it does is actually increases the supply of oxygen, right? The deeper you breathe in, the more oxygen you take in, the more oxygen you have, the more oxygen in your muscles when you breathe you get, and that's great for the brain. So let's try it. Number 4. Oh, there you go. Okay. So moving for 15 minutes daily, and I want to specifically tell you that this is not just moving like to go to the gym, because sometimes that's hard. Not everybody's able to get, even mass abuse terrible, I'm able to get to the gym a single day. But just being able to recognize that movement in any form, mindful movement is amazing, because it's not really for weight loss and all that stuff, but it's to get your heart flowing, right? And also it improves your lymphatic system. Now, what the lymphatic system is actually what you call our body's intuitive, right? It actually removes the toxin from our body. And the lymphatic system needs the muscles to pump it. So every time you do any activity, the muscles are pumping, and that allows that drainage to take place. Right? So anything would work. Even taking the stairs up and down, when I'm not able to go to the gym, I just walk it up a few more times, right? Walking, walking around the grocery store, I love doing that. I go into like one thing and I walk around the house like so many times. That's great walking, right? Gardening, I'm starting to get when the weather gets better. You know, even doing chores, anything that gets you moving is important for you, right? And I think we need to almost make an intentional effort. Some days when you're on the desk all the time, which I happened last week, and I was like, I have to intentionally think, okay, if I'm not going to the gym, then I need to start moving more in the house, right? Walking while on the phone, Gabe does that a lot. I think that was really weird, but it does, it's effective, because when you're walking on the phone, it's not half an hour conversation, but it's not half an hour walk, right? Keeping a miracle journal. Now that's something I do. You've probably heard about gratitude journal, right? Everybody talks about the gratitude journal. But the miracle journal is something that I found really miraculous in me. Because here's the thing, right? We're so used to not seeing the good around us because of the way we live. And I think during the pandemic, it just got even worse because there was so much fear. And I remember talking to someone about, you know, we were talking about all the number of cases going on, number of hospitalization, right? And that's what the focus was. And nobody was actually looking at the number of people recovering because it was 98% recovery. And if you actually looked at those numbers, then the world would seem so doom and gloom, right? But we went, it's just the way I feel like the system is designed. You know, there's a lot of focus on the media. It's kind of just focusing on, you know, what's going wrong. We are not focusing on things which are going right, right? And when you do a miracle journal, you're actually looking for things. You're looking for things that are extraordinary that you didn't expect to happen, right? And that feeling of awe that you get, like, oh my God, you know, it's amazing. It could be a sunset, right? It could be the simplest things, but when they create that feeling of wow, that actually has been studied, that feeling, because emotions have an impact on the body. That's another topic, right? And even, you know, negative emotions, positive emotions, and all actually has been studied to help lower inflammation. It decreases your daily stress, and it creates a feeling of more connection and happiness. And happiness is good for the body, right? So there's a lot to be said about this feeling of awe, and that you can get when you're actually looking for things which are like extraordinary. You know, even sometimes I noticed that in simple things, like even, you know, when I was really sick in 2019, there was a lot of things that I could do. I couldn't pick up my plate. And just recently, I took a big platter and put it up at the top shelf. And for a second, oh my gosh, I can do this. No, that's just that feeling of like, wow, even as I think about it, it just creates that feeling like, it allows you to believe in possibilities. It gives you hope. And I think when you are dealing with an illness, this is a really important thing to have, and it's actually studied to show that it actually helps the body physiology. So a simple thing to do, very powerful. To get yourself a miracle in any journal. We mine is my model cover journal, and I just write it when I see extraordinary things. Making human connections regularly. Connections have actually been studied a lot. And you know, they find that it has a positive impact on heart health, cancer, diabetes, increase in lifespan, decrease in mortality. And in fact, the recent study that came up was saying it's actually better than exercising and quitting smoking for overall health. We talk about exercise, we talk about overall health, So we don't talk about connections the way we should be, right? And I think this became really obvious during the pandemic, right? When really we couldn't connect, right? And I feel like I think at that time, one of the things that I think as pharmacists we were able to do is allow people that space. I think not just for our healthcare, when everybody would kind of disappear. We were open, and I remember people would just come in and talk, right? Just to be able to connect. And I think that forget the medication, I think that's really important for the overall health of the person. And that's one thing that we really strongly love. We create that space and the room for people to be able to come in and have a conversation, have a smile, have a joke, right? Because that is what connection is about. And it doesn't even have to be like a coffee date regularly. You know, I always tell my friends because they're all working full time and I'm kind of semi-retired, and like, you're not time to go out. It doesn't even have to be big things. It could be a smile at a stranger. It could be a small conversation at the floor at the grocery store, right? It doesn't have to be big. It's that ability to connect with someone else, another human, and to smile, have a small conversation, even talk about the weather. Studies have shown even those small connections can actually make an impact on the brain, right? Connection, very powerful, very simple, very easy, no cost to anyone. Meal. Okay, so now this is going to be a little bit controversial. So let me explain. Bodies are actually not designed for continuous eating, right? In this part of the world, I think we have a lot of access to food, and so we are kind of gotten used to this way of eating. However, a lot of new studies have been coming out of fasting, intermittent fasting, right? Allowing a gap of time between meals. And they found that that's actually very effective for the body in terms of the detox, right? So when you decrease the food, there's a thing called autophagy that turns on, and it actually gets rid of all the cells which are not working. So it's like a cleanup food comes in. If you're not feeding constantly, it activates this cleanup food to come in and start cleaning out the gut, the cells, all kinds of things. But they also found that when you have decreased food intake, you'll improve insulin sensitivity. So for diabetics, sometimes that's really helpful. Cholesterol levels improve and heart health improves. So if you're diabetic or if you have any other medical conditions, I wouldn't just jump into this. This is really something that we need to discuss, but there's a lot of evidence in terms of intermittent fasting, which basically means, so for example, when you have your dinner at 6, go to bed at 10, and you didn't eat anything. So from that 6 up until the next morning, you actually, right? That's why it's called break fast, because you're breaking your fast then until overnight. When for me, the easiest part of this is skip the breakfast. When I wake up, I'm not hungry. So if you want to skip a meal, you wake up for breakfast and you're like, I'm not really hungry. You're so tuned to kind of eating like, okay, breakfast, lunch, dinner. We kind of tune into our body and notice, am I really hungry? If I'm not hungry, maybe I think that's the reason, right? Just try that. It's not something and you can say, out of the 10 things I'm checking this one out, right? You can say that, that's fine too. This is just, I don't want you to like think about it all the time, but see how you feel. If you're not hungry, I started skipping the breakfast, and by the time I have my breakfast, it's like 1. It's kind of lunchtime, but I still eat my breakfast because I love it. So, and if they're lunchtime, then I skip that meal. So I basically have a kind of having 2 meals, right? And so, again, because there's so much evidence and it's so easy to do. In the old days, my mom would be like, oh, you have to eat this, and you have to, she's still to this point, my dad, when he recently passed away, he wasn't eating that much as he was older. My mom would like, but I said, it's okay, right? You don't necessarily need that many calories. In fact, I found that they did studies with a lot of secondarians in some of the communities, and they found that people who live over 100 years of age and they're healthy, it's because their calorie intake is low. So there have been studies, longevity studies done with people, and they found that the lower the calorie intake, the increase in longevity, and not just long life, but healthy life. So that is number 7. Laugh. When I first got introduced to this idea, this was when I was actually practicing. I read a book, and Norman Cousin was the guy who who's done a lot of research on it. And he was the one, I think it was in the 70s, he was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, similar to what I had, but it was quite severe. It was pretty much dead out, right? And he actually recovered by just watching comedy every day for a couple of hours, never specific shows, but he just laughing at all. When he recovered, he actually did a lot of research on this. When I just read about him and I was like, oh my God, I need to do this. Because in 2019 is when I was really sick, and that's when I started, watching a lot of sitcoms and actually going to comedy shows. Because and then the studies show that there is again, inflammation is lower. Laughter lowers your inflammation. It decreases your stress and stress hormones. Every time, anything that helps you decrease your stress is going to help the body. Because stress is behind so many of our illnesses. Increases the lipid cholesterol, right? So this is just some of the studies that have been shown in terms of laughter. And you may have heard about laughter yoga. So in India, laughter yoga is actually quite big. And a whole bunch of people get together and they kind of like pretend to laugh. But honestly, if you actually watch them on YouTube, you start laughing. And it's hilarious, laughing, right? And I know it's such a cheap, easy thing to do, but I know looking back at my own sort of upbringing, culturally, I think it wasn't acceptable. I remember, parents would say that, oh, if you laugh too much, then I cry. Right? Again, it's a conditioning that happens. So like laughter felt like this was the right thing to do. And it was only really that I realized that, laughter is important for us. It really helps us feel better and not just feel better mentally, but it's actually physiologically changing things. And it's cheap and it's great fun. So have a laugh, crack a joke, it's okay. Okay, number 9, we almost at the end of this purpose thing. Rest. It seems like a really simple thing. But I don't know why so many of us struggle with it. Including me. Before I got sick, I was really on the go. It was constantly busy with this, that. I never had time in the day to really for myself. There was really no self-care, none of that, because I was so busy. It's really my sickness, and it was I think it was my naturopathic doctor who had told me that you're a human being, not a human being. I think that was the best advice I ever got, because I realized that I really was spending too much. I was getting my sleep was okay, but in the daytime there was no rest. My mind was actually active, my mind was busy until I got sick, and then I couldn't do a lot of it, right? So now I've learned to rest. Rest is important. Rest for the mind, rest for the body, right? It's really important to be able to take that time. Now, if you're not struggling with sleep, oftentimes we think that, and I know clients would come in, and I have friends who struggle with sleep, and they're like, well, I can't sleep, but it's not something you want to ignore, because I've seen many times in practice that, you're not sleeping well, and 6 months down the road, your cholesterol levels go up, you have some pain here, something else is happening, because sleep is when our body is repaired, right? Well-studied phenomena, sleep is when the body is repaired. If you're not getting sleep, your body is not repaired. And things are going to start slowly. So people don't always connect that, right? So I always say, if you're not sleeping, let's get the root. There may be other things happening. But don't ignore the fact that you're not able to sleep well. It's not something that you should be living with, right? It's something that can be solved. And again, for some of you, you may be taking medication that makes you go up, like the vitamin that makes you get up in the middle of the night. And if that's happening, make sure you take yourself time in the day to take a nap. An hour nap with this power naps are very good. So if that's the situation, make sure you prioritize rest, because that's when the body does a lot of repair, and so you can't just ignore that. And the last thing I want to talk about is find a flow activity. Have you guys heard of flow activity before? Interest. It could be. So this was new for me again when I got sick. It was my functional medicine doctor who said to me when I went to see him that, do you enjoy doing something? And I'm like, no, I'm so busy. I was so busy running around, my head cut off. I didn't have anything that I did for myself for enjoyment. And so he said to me, find yourself a flow activity. Flow activity is really a flow is a state of mind when a person becomes fully engaged in an activity that it's like the sense of time just goes away. You're so engaged, your mind's focused. The issue you guys read about meditation or powerful meditation is for the mind, right? Because you're not in your head, you're not focused, maybe you're in breath. If you have trouble with meditation, do a floor activity because it kind of gives you the similar effects, but you're doing something you enjoy, right? And you are focused on that, your mind's not running around all those thoughts, your body goes into this flow state, which is also considered like a rest and digest state, right? So finding a flow activity is really important. I got myself paint my number because I realized, well, that's painting, but I'm good at painting, so I thought let me get myself painting my number. And that's what I started doing. When I didn't do that anymore, that other activities, but at that time, when I did nothing, and I got myself, we're gonna find something, I got myself painting my number, right? But you can have, coloring. Coloring is really a mindful flow activity. Playing instruments, it's very powerful to know how to play instruments. Art, solving puzzles, even playing sports. But in that moment, you're not thinking about anything else because you can really focus on it. So chess is probably zero. Yeah, right. So finding yourself that flow activity and making that, even if it's not daily, 3 times a week, but making that part of your life. Finding that time because it's helping you, right? It's not just enjoyment, and it's enjoyment too, but it's helping you in your life.
So is this what we call a hobby or something sort of?
Yes, you could.
So,
it should be, the thing is that it should be too challenging that it kind of frustrates you, and it should be so easy, like sometimes people like get and watch TV, right? I don't think that would consider a flow activity. But it should be enough that you need the concentration and that, I guess the engagement into the thing you're doing, but it's not so difficult that I want to do this. So that kind of defines balance.
not based on you.
Yeah. It's just the enjoyment. Like, it's funny, simple things like enjoyment. It's like I'm kind of thought about it. You can't enjoy things in life. You're meant to enjoy life. Life wasn't supposed to be like all stress. You need to enjoy life. This is how you connect with people. So it's simple things that I think as a human species is not fun. Right. And as you move towards more awareness and more well-being, I think these kind of fun. And that's it. It's like last time you kind of read what would be. I think this is good. So if you have any questions, my contact, you can email me if you want to reach me. I'm not always at the store, but if you call me at the calendar, if they want to speak to me, I will come back. I kind of go in and out more times. But yeah, email me. Want to email me? I forgot to read it. So if there's any questions you have, you can take them up. Online has questions, I can look at the chat.
So if you have 11 and 12, you had to pick 10 out of many.
What's that?
You had to pick 10 out of many.
You have to, yeah, there were, and then some I thought may not be as easy as I think they are, but I thought. So everyday stuff.
Which
Maybe
one?
not the, maybe the skipping the meal might be. I mean, I'm used to that because I wanted to get and it's no from like dawn to dusk, so I'm kind of used to that. It's coming on. So I know signs and things people haven't done it, right? So that's still not really nothing about it. Right? But if you're doing this thing in the meal, you actually have to clear like to find it out. Yeah, so if there isn't any more questions, I don't know if anyone online has a question, you can unmute yourself. I can probably hear you.
Hi, Aziza.
Give me 1 second. I think, was someone trying to say anything online?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you've listed 10 different steps, strategies. Now, how do you fit all 10 in one day?
How do you do all 10 in one day?
Yeah.
If you think about them, they're actually stuff you're doing anyways, right? Let me just try to go back. Hang on 1 second. Let's see if we can go back. Okay, maybe this you can do 3 times a week, but rest, right? Rest is a priority. You can find time for that. Laughing, definitely, you can find time for that. Skipping a meal, maybe not. You can do that a few times a week. Okay, so making human connections, like I said, it doesn't really even have to be something big. It could be really small things that, wherever you go, smiling at people and having a conversation, even with the family, even with the kids, right? That's doable. Miracle journal. Now, I think if you keep it, you may not be able to fill it in every day, but it will make you look for those things, right? So it's like, if you go into a dark room and if you have a flashlight, if you turn that on, all you're gonna see is what you're pointing at. So for example, if this side is really dirty and all you're doing is pointing there, all you're gonna see is the dirt. But if you point on the other side, which is really clean, you're gonna see that. So it's really pointing the attention of your mind. So it's almost like creating that habit, right? And movement for 15 minutes. I mean, we're doing it anyways, most of us, right? Breathing deeply, I think 5 minutes a day, we can fit that in. Well, this again is once a week. You can pick a new fruit when you go grocery shopping and chewing your food.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think that can be done? Or is there ones you might struggle with?
I guess it's more just lifestyle and try to incorporate as many as you can per day.
Yeah, I feel like we're doing all of these, like breathing, we're doing anyway. So just taking the moment to breathe, deeper, right? And things like we're already talking to people, making the intentional connection, right? Making like, smiling and things like that. And laughing. I guess we just too serious. So we just have to take that moment and just crack a joke. Or, do you know what I mean?
I guess it's just incorporating these little things into your day-to-day.
Yeah, just being
the
conscious
teaching.
of it.
Yes,
Absolutely,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but again, you can take a few of them and just say, okay, I'm going to start with these two. And then next week, I'm going to add these two, right? So it's really just being aware that there are so many things I can do that can have an impact.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry, somebody here had a question. I think at the back. Sorry.
If I take a magnesium, how often I can take it?
Oh, magnesium?
Yeah, once in a while.
Depends why you're taking it. Depends why you're taking it. Whether you're taking it for a specific reason or just to replenish.
I don't know, I just think these are really good.
And I take it once a day. Once a day.
Once a day?
Once a day.
It's
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it was there.
and what time, at the end of the day, something?
Yes, because it's a more relaxing animal, so I always say.
And also, I think sometimes there's some, medical leave.
Yes, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll help you relax, okay.
Yeah.
Your comment about the different types of vegetables was interesting. A friend of mine has a chart with different colors, like of the rainbow. And she sort of ticks them off. So the idea is to get as many colors of the rainbow each day in her diet.
Yeah.
So either, red from apples or pomegranate and orange carrots and
Yeah.
green vegetables.
Yeah.
Each day or each part of the week, and tick off as many different colors.
Yeah.
We're supposed to get, what is it, 7 to 10 fruits and vegetables daily?
Yeah. I just again, and I like to again, I really believe in intuitive eating as well. I also think that, just being conscious of it, right? And if it works for her, that's great, but if it causes a lot more stress for you to see, oh, I can get this, I can get that, don't do that, because then the stress is gonna be worse, right? So you want to just go and I would say just try different things, like just look at it, like, what do I normally eat? Like, I know, some people in the family, like they just have pear, some just have apple or banana, and some only eat bananas. But I would go and I'll see things, I like things, I'll see something and I'll come and sometimes I think different, I didn't like that. But I do try, and sometimes things like Jason party show, I find them, like, well, you want to go on high, then right? But things like that, it's just the different ones, again, increase the microbiome and phytonutrients, the more colorful pomegranate, every time that in season, I'll make sure I have that, right? Mangoes when they come in season, summer that way. So if you find that you're kind of limiting yourself for a few, then just try to expand that, right? And even herbs into that, like it doesn't, even when you're trying to maybe not look for tests, not just vegetables, but herbs are also part of that. So part of the
Not conscious. So you said an hour, that's about maximum, like 30 minutes, 60 minutes of the day. And
if you're not
how much,
well,
how late, and if you're napping after a certain time. Even if it's told, try not to nap before.
Yeah.
It messed up their circadian rhythm, good nights.
Does it mess it up?
Pardon?
Does it mess it up? It's very individual. It does not, it doesn't very mess it up. You can make that for the day. But it's just, you have to experiment. Right? You, as long as if it's making your nighttime sleep delayed, then do it earlier. But the point of that is oftentimes we're tired in the day, but we keep going because it's intrinsic drive, we also have an eye have to that I can't keep doing this, do that, right? And so really, as a human being, right, we need to start doing a lot better too. If our body is again, it's this is like our body's tired, then take that moment. Take that moment to take a rest. And it could just be lying down. It may not, you may not fall asleep, but your body wants to just lie down. And you know, you just can slow down your thinking, you know.
I would have thought the meditation would be part of what the.
But meditation is not this, right? It's definitely an amazing thing to do, but I wanted something that's easy that you could go home and say, I can do this. And I think most of them are, right? You could, because we're doing this anyways, right? And it's just becoming a bit more conscious. I thought meditation is not even for a lot of people, that requires that, that's like slow activity, because that's something you just enjoy, but it kind of creates the same mental state as meditation, right? So, if you're meditating, that's great.
No, I'm not.
So then find a flow activity, you'll find that, you know, it's less, I guess, burdensome. And it's an enjoyable activity, but the brain waves are doing the same thing that you do when you're. So, yeah, and for next month, it's usually supposed to be end of March. I'm not sure if I'll be doing the month of March, when we come out of that, so it all depends. So I wanted to keep it consistent, so we end last Tuesday of each month. But March may not happen, so if you just want to be on top of it, just make sure you're on my email list, then that usually will contact. We do post it up at the store too, but if you're not in the store, I'm going to do it. So the topic will go out as well as if you're doing it. So for now, it's kind of tentative. I may not do it in March. But if it doesn't happen, we'll have to make a decision. Otherwise, the last two. I do not wait until. We'll see how I feel. And so, yeah, that's it then. Thank you very much for coming. You're welcome.
I was wondering, one thing I find with myself. And I don't know how much it's part of wellness, but
Once